You're listening to Boomers Today with your host, Frank Sampson.
Well, welcome to Boomers Today. I'm your host, Frank Sampson. Of course, each week we bring you important, useful information on issues facing baby boomers, their parents, and other loved ones. I just want to thank everybody for all their support. Our listeners are growing each and every day. So many of you are listening to us on your favorite radio station in your local community. Some of you are listening to us on podcast. We're on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio. We also have our own app. You can download the app for free, Boomers Today. Just go onto your app store on your iPhone or Android phone, and you can listen that way as well. So thank you for all your support. And I know why our listeners are growing. Our listeners are growing because we have the best guests and who provide us great educational information on so many subject matters. And today's going to be no different. We have with us Erin Dwyer. Erin owns and operates Senior Care Authority in St. Louis, Missouri. She's also a certified senior advisor and a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. We'll learn more about that in just a moment. Erin has always had a career in the helping professions, spending 17 years working with children and adults as a speech language therapist in private practice, school systems, and outpatient clinical settings in the St. Louis area. She has experience with treating clients who have had strokes, traumatic brain injuries, swallowing disorders, and aphasia, among many others. So, Erin, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us on Boomers Today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is a lot of information to go over, but maybe you could just give us a little overview on what you do. I know it sounds like you have your hands full, so you have a Senior Care Authority business in St. Louis, as well as your work with the Beyond Driving with Dignity. So give us an overview of what you do, and then we'll get into some specific questions.
Sure. Yes, I have been working as an elder care consultant and residential placement advisor with Senior Care Authority for over 2 years now. I love helping families through the aging transition, and I saw a need for help with those that weren't sure how to talk to their parents about the driving issue. That's a very sensitive issue. So I decided to become a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. And I just love helping families in the St. Louis area, feel supported and advocated for.
Great. Well, thanks for all you do. So, as it relates to driving, that could be a really touchy subject, especially with older adults and, their independence. Sometimes taking away those keys could really, have an effect. So it needs to be planned out well. So what are some of the signs that you suggest families look for when it may be time for someone to retire from driving?
Yes. So family members, if they're noticing that their older loved one is getting lost, especially in familiar places, that's a big red flag. If you're noticing new unexplained dents or scratches in their car, if they're riding the brake, having a lot of frequent near misses, being honked at, I have no idea why. They're not signaling or following traffic signs. That's another big one. But basically also just understanding their feelings around driving. Are they anxious? Are they nervous? Are they already starting to change their habits? Do they come to an intersection and they're just paralyzed with fear? Those are really big red flags that we want to have the families look out for.
So let's say there is some issues going on then. All right. So I would think, I know I've been through it myself with my own father, but it's the approach. That's so key. Again, independence. Somebody driving and taking away those keys or something. It could be kind of challenging. So, what do you suggest to adult children as far as the approach on this particular subject matter to take with their family member? Yeah.
Absolutely a delicate subject. First of all, if it's possible to have that conversation in person, I highly suggest that, and not during a time of stress. When someone's ill, that's not the time to be talking about it. So if you can have it sitting down with the person's ideal, and just give yourself time to have that conversation. You're probably going to have it multiple times, so you're going to baby step it and just approach it, as gently as possible, and don't challenge your parent or grandparent, respect them. It's about the safety of them and the safety of the others on the road. That's the main goal here. But also just asking the older adult how they feel about their own driving. Again, like I talked about, are they anxious? Are they getting angry on the road? Or is it no big deal? They just don't think, they get in the car and they go. And just stick to the facts, what you observe. So it's not opinion, but, hey, Mom, I noticed you missed that stop sign. Did you see that? If you're in the car with her. And then also you take the blame. So use I statements. I'm worried about you getting lost. I'm worried about you getting into an accident, not your driving scares me. Your driving is bad, that kind of thing. But making it more about you and your worries and asking them if they're willing to get their driving looked at and go from there.
Yeah, so don't point the finger to them. Don't
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great recommendation. So the program that you have I think it's a certification in, it's called Beyond Driving with Dignity through a company by the name of Keeping Us Safe. So tell us a little more how that whole program works.
Sure. So what we do is it's something called an enhanced self-assessment program. So what we do is we sit down with the client where they're most comfortable, usually their home, and we have a conversation about their driving. We sit down and we ask them how they feel about their driving, what their past experience has been, when did they learn to drive, their favorite car. We get to know them. We build a level of trust, and we try to figure out how much their driving means to them. Where do they like to drive? And we do some cognitive assessments with them, exercises to figure out where they are. We look at their mental and physical driving fitness by getting in the car with them. We get in their own vehicle, so it's something they're familiar with. We do a road signs test with them, and we just we do some problem solving as well. So if they're out there on the road and something happens, I need to be able to see that they're able to effectively problem solve through that. So it usually takes about 2.5 hours from start to finish, and then we end up providing the family with a full report within 10 business days. And so we also sit down with the senior as well and just ask them how they think it went and point out some things. And we have that dialogue. It's not, I'm telling you, I'm taking away the keys. It's, let's talk about this. This is what's going on. And a lot of times it's even just tweaking the driving or maybe modifying the car to keep them successful on the road. And if we do determine that it really is best to retire the keys, we make sure that we find an alternate plan for transportation, whether that's a neighbor, an adult child, an Uber, a Lyft, ride sharing. We keep them as independent as possible and have those other alternative transportation in place.
So when you're brought in by a family to assess the situation, what's the approach taken with that older adult as far as who you are and what are you trying to accomplish?
Right. I always ask the family, please tell them why I'm coming. I don't want to show up and have them say, oh, they're here to check out the house. No, I want them to be fully aware of why I'm there. But we take the approach of that we just want to take a look at your driving and figure out how you feel about it. We're just going to sit down and have a conversation. The fact that it's not in a medical setting, it's not in a simulator, we're in their actual car. that takes away a lot of the, excuses that it wasn't a familiar road or it wasn't a familiar vehicle. And just approaching that as, I want to sit down and talk to you. I want to hear from you. I don't want to hear about what your kids say. I want to hear your thoughts and views on your driving and how to make them successful.
Yeah, and I know you're in the St. Louis area, and in a moment I'll let you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and how they could find maybe a local representative in their area as well. So this is a national program, I know. So what are some of the top things that you see, after you've done this, let's call it an assessment of the person's driving? What are some of the things that are pretty common that you see that can be corrected?
So a lot of times it can just be a reduced range of motion. They cannot fully turn their head to look behind them to back up. So is a backup camera an option? Do they know how to use it? Oversized mirrors maybe. So sometimes things like that, because we do look in, can they get in and out of the car independently? And then also sometimes it's just as simple as making sure they have a cell phone charged. We ask them questions about what would you do if you were in an accident and the other driver is injured? And they would say, oh, well, I would call 911. And I'd ask them, well, how? You don't carry a cell phone with you. Oh, those kinds of things. So we think through and, we can, put Post-it notes on the door to remind them, and the adult kids, that's part of their homework too, is to make sure, that their older adult driver knows how to use their cell phone, that it's charged, and that it's in the car somewhere with them. They're not on it, but that it's there in case they get lost, in case there's an accident. And sometimes it's just medications. If they're on a new medication, we ask them to, wait a couple days to see the effects of that before they just go get in a car. Or it's just maybe as simple as, you need a vision or a hearing check, and then you're, cleared to drive, those kinds of things.
You bring up a great point with the medication. So how is that evaluated? I mean, is that part of the program that you want to know what medications they're on to know if the medications they're on can have an effect? How is that evaluated?
Yes, so that is part of our enhanced self-assessment program through Beyond Driving with Dignity. We ask the family to have a list of their medications, or at least be able to provide the bottles while we're there. And I note them down. I note if there's side effects of drowsiness, other things like that. If the medicines are new, if they're outdated, if they're taking them as prescribed. That's all part of the learning conversation we have, because they may be on a certain medication, but they're not taking it regularly, or maybe they're taking too much of it. Sometimes it's just contraindicated, too many, medicines doing the same thing. And just a lot of times we can alert the family to that, and then they can go back to the doctor and say, should my mom really be on this and this at the same time? Because oftentimes they have multiple doctors prescribing multiple things and not talking to each other. So that is definitely part of our inventory. And we try to cross-check with the family and the doctors when possible.
That's great. So we're going to take a quick break in a second, but before we do, why don't you share with everybody how they could get a hold of you, and if you'd be able to assist them with the work you do at Senior Care Authority, the work you do with the Beyond Driving with Dignity program, and how you might be able to help people across the country.
Yes, I can be reached at 314-451-2255, or on my website, seniorcare-stlewis.com. And even if you're not local, I can connect you to somebody in another state. That's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Great. All right, we're going to take a quick break, Erin, just to recognize our sponsor, and we're going to be right back and continue our conversation. I want to remind everybody that today's show is sponsored by Senior Care Authority, an elder care consulting organization that has a national network of professionally trained and experienced local advisors to assist families in determining the right path for your loved ones. They'll discuss various long-term care options, whether it's in-home care, assisted living, memory care, or if you just need an advocate to get some advice from, a local senior care authority advisor can help you now. So for a free initial consultation with an advisor in your area, contact Senior Care Authority, 888-809-1231, or you could go directly to the main website at www.seniorcareauthority.com to find an advisor in your area. Of course, if you're in the St. Louis area, you can reach Erin, who we're talking to right now, at Erin at seniorcareauthority.com. So, Erin, let's talk about what happens if you feel that the particular person you're evaluating on the driving is just not safe to be driving. What steps are taken then?
Yes. So the biggest question that the client and the family wants to know is where does that data go? Where does that report go? First of all, my report only goes to the family and the client. And if there's a prescribing doctor, if the doctor is the referral, then it will go to him or her. But other than that, the data stays with them. So if we have a situation where the client probably should not be driving and they're very resistant to that, we try to avoid that situation as much as possible by talking to them and talking about alternative forms of transportation. We even have basically a paper that they're willing to say, when I feel my driving is no longer safe, that I am going to listen to, and then you fill in the blank. So my daughter, my wife, whoever it is. And then also if they agree to retire, we also have something that they fill out that they're agreeing to retire, that it's their decision. We're not making them give up the keys. But if there's a situation where someone is unwilling to stop driving, they see that despite the evidence, they are not giving it up, then there's things you can do, and I educate the family on that. It depends on your state, of course. Missouri happens to be very clear about that process. So it has to be done in writing to the state. There's a form you fill out, and you do remain anonymous, but you have to, say who you are and what the reasons are for your concern for that person's driving. And then they will let them know by mail that they have to come in and retake the vision and the driving test possibly. So there are ways around it. We can be creative. There's some, therapeutic fibbing we can do, about the car, but we deal with that as a case-by-case basis and try to, avoid that if possible.
Is it usually go pretty smooth in most cases in a situation like that, or are most of these cases pretty challenging if you have to retire someone from driving?
From my experience, I have not had anyone get irate or refusing to stop driving. A lot of times the adult children will say, my dad's really stubborn, good luck, he's not going to listen to you. But because I'm an objective person and I'm not bringing any family history or anything from the past, sometimes they'll listen to me more than they'll listen to their adult child. Because, they can't tell me, oh, well, when you had a ticket back when you were 18, I didn't take the keys away from you. They don't know my driving history. They don't know anything about my past. So it's coming in with a clean slate. So a lot of times they will listen to me, and especially when I point out things about their driving. Maybe they're already not going out when it's dark. Maybe they're not going out when it's looking like rain. Well, guess what? If we get you an Uber or we have transportation from the senior community, you can be dropped off door to door. You don't have to stop going out at night anymore. If it looks like rain, you can be dropped off. So a lot of times it increases their independence, increases their ability to go out with friends. So we point those things out as well.
Yeah. We I don't know if we roll our eyes, but we are in amazement when you hear about these self-driving cars that are becoming bigger. Obviously, there's concerns about them, but you would think that once that is perfected, assuming it gets perfected, that could be a wonderful service for seniors. Is that anything you discuss with families, or actually a little bit too early to be talking about that?
A little bit too early to be talking about that with my families just yet, but that is something in the future that is very positive and would be very helpful for families. Then they would take, the lack of skill or the lack of memory out of driving, and they would just get in the car and go. So I can't wait to see what technology brings.
Yeah. So, Erin, I know that you're a certified senior advisor. You have a wonderful background, and you work with a lot of families, or have worked with a lot of families who their loved one may be suffering from some form of dementia or memory impairment of some sort. Talk to us about how that part of it, if they have some cognitive challenges, how important is that as it relates to driving safely?
Absolutely. Most people think, once mom gets diagnosed with dementia, she can't drive anymore. And that's not true. People can still drive with mild cognitive impairment or early dementia. It really is, again, a case-by-case basis. That's why we ask families, if your mom or dad has just been diagnosed with any kind of memory impairment, go out and drive with them now. Get a baseline for how they're driving. What are their habits? So that you will notice when there is a decline. There was a 2015 study that within 5 years of a dementia diagnosis, 50% of those individuals will be in an auto accident. So that's, very alarming. So this is why we do what we do. They often don't realize that they're having difficulties. They, can go out and even bump another car, and they come home and they have no idea that happened, or they thought it was, somebody else's fault. I drive fine. And this is why if we come out and we do the enhanced self-assessment program and they pass with flying colors, but there's been a diagnosis, they're probably going to decline. So we will always come out again one other time free of charge to reassess and see what's going on, because a lot can happen in a couple months. You can get lost even in familiar areas. And this is what we talk to them about. They'll try to bring up excuses. Well, I just go to church. It's 2 minutes down the road. Well, what if your normal route that you would go on is closed for construction or there's an accident? Will they have the cognitive ability to think through that? Or will they become paralyzed and, in fear? With dementia, you get decreases in reaction times, decreases in attention span. Sometimes they can confuse the gas pedal and the brake. And then, of course, losing the ability to problem solve. If they get lost, they tend to become hyper-focused on orienting themselves and then ignoring the road signs and other cars around them. I remember hearing a story of an older driver that got turned around on the highway and just parked the car on a 4-lane highway and got out and left. And then a semi truck ended up hitting it, and the gentleman almost died, just because she was so focused on being lost that everything else kind of went out the window. So it's very important to have those conversations, frequently, and again, get the baseline and check up on your loved one's skills as the dementia progresses.
Yeah. I'll speak for myself on this one. I've become pretty reliant on these GPS systems, right? I mean, that now they're right on your phone, Google or any of the other ones that are there. And almost to the point where, I'm kind of in auto drive. I just listen to what they tell me to do. Go right here, go left there. We become dependent on that. How receptive are older adults to those types of systems that are available right on their phone?
I have found that too many bells and whistles in a phone or on a car, they get kind of overwhelmed with it, and they don't tend to like it. So even just having a flip phone is fine if they don't need, the GPS talking to them. It's more just finding out where your older adult is and how they feel about technology. Maybe they do want their GPS programmed in their car. So having, the adult child do that for them. So all they need to do is just hit a button that says home, making it as easy as possible. But if they're resistant to the technology, then I would not push it. Maybe they just like to have their paper and pen, directions, or just go to their favorite places and back, and that's it. So again, it just depends on the individual and their feelings around technology, how anxious they are about it.
Yeah. So, we only have a couple minutes left, Erin. Maybe you could just give some words of wisdom or input to families that are listening that are now being confronted or could be confronted with this situation with a parent, grandparent, spouse. What are the steps you think that they should take initially?
I would say don't be afraid to have the conversation. Just approach it in baby steps, asking how they feel about their driving, if they're changing anything, and if they've noticed, that they're already amending their driving and why. And just making sure that, your loved one stays healthy, exercising regularly, getting their vision checked, yearly, and hearing every 2 to 3 years, those kinds of things to make sure that they're can be the best driver and stay independent as long as possible. And if you feel like it is out of your hands, you don't want to approach it, then please, don't be shy about reaching out to me or another Beyond Driving with Dignity professional to handle those conversations and to help guide you through them.
So that leads me into my next question. Even though earlier you shared with people how to get a hold of you, let's make sure that everybody wrote it down. How could someone get a hold of you if they want to get some advice with their loved ones in this situation?
They can give me a call at 314-451-2255. They can email me, Erin at seniorcareauthority.com, or always my website, www.seniorcare-splewis.com.
Great. Erin Dwyer, thank you so much for joining us on Boomers Today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been great.
Yeah, it has been great. And I want to thank everybody out there for joining us on Boomers Today. Please, please be safe. And we'll talk to everybody real soon.
You've been listening to Boomers Today with Frank Sampson. To learn more about today's show, visit boomerstodayradio.com and join us next time for another edition of Boomers Today.